俺の見たものじゃない。違う。誰の記憶だ。
Okay, what was that? This video is about to get extremely weird. Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm your friendly host with a funny accent, and today we are going to talk about all the events of the latest chapters. And in addition, we are going to discuss those strange panels you've just saw. So make sure you watch this entire video. Attack on Titan chapter 137 is out and the true origin of Titan has finally been revealed. And after more than 10 years, Isayama finally decided to take a big step into a more scientific ending. Well, not pure science, sure, but still, the origin seems to be organic, which finally takes the idea of gods and devils off the table. The origin of Titans and basically everything else in this world is an ancient organism. That was exciting news for me, because I did a video more than a year ago where I mentioned this little creature. So I was absolutely mind blown when I first saw this panel. And also thank you to everyone that watched and commented. Your reactions were absolutely amazing and you literally made me feel like a superstar. Thank you again for all the love and support. The latest chapters raised some serious questions, so this video is going to be broken down into chapters. I will explain the major points, answer your most asked questions, and give you my own interpretation of things. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and to enable all notifications to not miss any of my future videos. I'm literally on every social media, so come say hi to me on Discord, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you like. All the links are in the video description. And lastly, if you enjoy my work, you can now buy me a coffee. That will support me and my channel and also keep me refreshed for making more fun content. But now, let's dive into this beautiful mess left after the last two chapters, and we'll start with the star of the show, Life. For the second time, I am proud to introduce Hallucigenia, the headless worm, which is now known as the creature that Isayama based Life after. The Hallucigenia got its name because of its trip-inducing appearance, looking like something you would see while hallucinating. We will touch more on this later. So what is life? Life is an organism that was created on Earth after millions of years where countless masses of unknown things started to appear and disappear again and again, to the point one of them survived. That was life. But we do see some explosion out in space. This is a possible way of Isayama to show us that some of the matter that was on Earth did come from somewhere outside of Earth, maybe to keep it a little more mysterious. In our world, more than 5 million years ago, there was a time period called the Cambrian explosion. That is the time scientists believe was when matter turned into life. And here I'm talking about all life on our planet, and not about life in our story. This is actually very smart. Zeke is describing evolution in simple words, and actually Isayama decided to give the name Life to the first creature that survived and started the evolution process in his story. So I have to say, I do love the name. It is simple and literally bigger than life. Simply because life in our world is everything, not only us humans, animals or plants, and not even microbacterial life forms. Life is a word to describe something bigger than we can actually imagine. Life in our story was the beginning of everything in Attack on Titan. It was the organism that started everything. And like Zeke said, it took a lot of forms until it got to what they call humans today. And again, he is simply explaining evolution in different words. But just to be clear, life was not a single organism, and we can see there are more like him in this panel as well. They all evolved over millions of years, just like Zeke described. In our story, life wants to multiply. In simple words, it is like saying life in our world just wants to keep on going and to always move forward. And that is what life, the organism, also wanted: to multiply, to keep on living, to grow, and to keep on moving forward. Just like evolution in our world always moved forward, so did life in Attack on Titan. And just like we humans keep having babies and basically multiplying our numbers just to prolong our life on this planet, so did life in Attack on Titan. In a sense, that is a basic instinct of most creatures. The inner desire to keep on living and to spread your DNA to future generations. Humans, animals, and almost every other life form on our planet seeks to multiply and to increase its numbers in some way. We can say it is just nature's way, but we will also discuss the philosophy behind it later on this video. At some point in the early stages of life, one of the organisms got preserved in its original state, probably for millions of years. All of that while all the other life or lives or whatever already evolved to humans. That was the time Ymir encountered life, beneath the giant tree. Ymir was a human and basically one of the evolved forms of life, and I mean millions of years of evolution. In the moment life connected with her, it basically came in contact with a much more evolved version of itself, gaining the power of millions of years of evolution, all in a single moment. That is what created the Titans, when the primal DNA of the origin of life, now in Ymir, was passed on for generations using a sick cycle of cannibalism. The Eldian tribe were ground zero for this, and as they grew stronger, they also spread and grew in numbers. They wanted numbers, they wanted strength, exactly like life wanted according to Zeke. And it is important to understand that Zeke's plan of euthanasia was a plan to stop the life of Eldian people, and that would literally stop life. Therefore, Zeke's original plan went against life desires. And in a way, King Fritz and his vow also came against it, declaring he will not fight back to defend himself or the Eldians. Life is actually the perfect final antagonist of this show, simply because it is not an antagonist at all. It is not good or bad. It doesn't have an evil plan. It doesn't want to enslave anyone or to destroy others. It just wants to keep on going. And the people along the way that got its power, they are the ones who decided how to use it. Life is the perfect name for this creature, and for me, it reminded a little bit of the truth from Full Metal Alchemist, at least from the aspect of something that you can't really hate or blame, you just need to accept it for what it is. Putting aside the science, we have to acknowledge the fact that Ymir did escape to a world without death. This is clearly not something we can explain with science, at least for now. Ymir wished to avoid this pain, so she escaped to a mysterious world we now know as the Paths. But pay attention to the word escape to. This implies that this world was already here. That means Ymir didn't actually create this world. That raises the question, was she the first one visiting here? If you think about that, we are talking about millions of years, and Ymir's story is only 2000 years old. This is nothing compared to the time life had to evolve. So can we assume that this thing or something similar happened before to someone else in a different time period? Let me know what you think, and do you think Ymir was the first one in the Paths? Children creating or escaping to other worlds are something that we see a lot in TV shows and anime. I first saw it as a kid when I watched the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and also when watching the Never-Ending Story. Both, of course, only a child of the 80s and 90s will remember. We can also see this in a lot of different animes. Also in one of my personal favorites, Future Diary. And we will talk more about made-up worlds later in this video. And now let's jump back to a few very important moments in chapter 136. On the brink of world destruction, the conflict is still alive. While our group fights for humanity, Annie's dad and the rest of the Eldians are faced with the Marleyan soldiers of Fort Salta. So it seems that some things simply cannot change. I'm not sure about that, but I think there is a good possibility that Annie's dad died in that gunfight. That is simply because we don't get to see him standing next to Reiner's mom like in the latest chapters. There is also an idea floating around about this entire fight being some sort of joint hallucination. This will actually go nicely with the idea of the Hallucigenia. But because we see the crowd witnessing the fight from afar, and also Marleyan soldiers responding to it, I'm not so sure this is some Eren mind manipulation. We will touch on that more later in this video. And just so you know, this is an okapi, and it does have an extremely long tongue, so good job Isayama for using this animal as a titan. And honestly, the discussion of what the hell is an okapi and is it a pig or whatever was one of the most hilarious moments of this chapter, so it's nice that we can still have a few laughs so close to the end. What happened to Armin? One of the highlights of this chapter was Armin meeting Zeke in the Paths. Hello Eren's friend, this is so adorable. So what happened here? Exactly what happened to Zeke when Ymir fixed him inside the belly of a titan. It seems that some titan stomachs are somehow a straight connection to the Paths. So this is the perfect time to introduce you to this set of insane looking panels by Isayama. Panels that were published almost 5 years ago. In this set of panels, Armin wakes up to find a little titan friend. His new friend promises to never leave him and to always protect him. At some point, it starts eating people that bully Armin. In this example, we can see Jean being eaten, and the Titan promises he will live in his 4D tummy forever. Living forever in a 4-dimensional tummy sounds a lot like the paths to me. And look at that, his tummy can make your dreams come true. Pay attention to the word dreams, and not for example wish or desires. This of course goes well with what we talked about before about the events of chapter 137, and also with the latest preview panel from Isayama. The girl dreams of a world freed from curse and fate. So Ymir escaped to a world without death, and we have this panel about a 4-dimensional belly that can make your dreams come true. So can we assume the paths is a place that makes your dreams come true? If it is, how many dreams did it make into a reality so far? And again, the question from before, was Ymir really the first and only one there? If this is true, then we also have to question everything we saw in the paths. And that brings us to another one of Isayama's past panels called Attack on Zombies. In these sets of panels, the school is being attacked by zombies, but soon after, Eren wakes up to find out it was all just a dream. The next day, instead of feeling relieved, he can't stop thinking about those zombies and how bored he was before they arrived. This is very similar to our Eren, who felt bored in our world until the Titans attacked, and also Eren from Mikasa's alternate universe, but Eren also felt bored and died trying to leave the walls. This raises some serious questions about the final moments of Attack on Titan. Could it be that just like Ymir wanted to escape from a world of pain, Eren wanted to escape from a boring world? Could both be connected in some way we don't fully understand yet? Are those mysterious panels have been foreshadowing this entire time? You will judge for yourself later when we will see some more of them. This is also not the first time we see Eren waking up crying thinking this is all a dream. It was shown in Attack on Titan Junior High and also in more past panels, and of course in the actual anime and manga. But if this is somehow true, can it mean that the freedom that Eren was searching for so long was simply living a full adventurous life? What do you think is happening here? Are we witnessing Eren from different realities or dimensions maybe? Is he basically retaining some past memories and this is why he always wakes up crying? Let me know what you think. Zeke's new philosophy. Up until recent events, Zeke had a clear purpose and a goal. His purpose was solving the Eldian problem, and his goal was to execute his euthanasia plan. This determination kept him going since the day Tom planted this idea in his mind, and that is what led him up until this moment he touched Eren. So, what changed? For us, a lot, but for Zeke, much more. We need to remember that time works differently in the paths, and as Zeke said, he did spend a lot of time there. This was a clever trick from Isayama for introducing a new philosophy for Zeke in a convincing way. While we considered Zeke to be the same, in reality, or more precisely in the paths, Zeke had a lot of time to think and to process his new situation. Zeke now simply doesn't see any point for living. After revealing the nature of the world and the endless cycle of creation and destruction, of multiplying only for the sake of keep doing this over and over again with no end and without knowing why, or if this all even matters. Are we going somewhere? Is there even a point for all of this? This point of view is called nihilism, and it is basically the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. This is extreme skepticism maintaining that nothing in this world has real existence, and that is where Zeke stands right now. It is important to say that people who think that way also tend to be destructive, and that is also why Zeke is not even resisting the world destruction all around him. To live means you will eventually die, so what does it even matter? If you eventually reach the same place, why do you have to go on suffering your entire life, only to produce more life so that they can suffer some more? Putting a stop to this endless cycle of moving forward without knowing why and just repeating it over and over again is what Zeke considered as freedom. Maybe putting a stop to this will make someone truly free from pain, doubts or concerns. Needless to say that this is a pretty dark way of thinking, and it only leads to self-destruction. Zeke looks at the bigger picture in a very non-human way, and we can't blame him because, as we said, he also spent a lot of time outside of society. But Armin was there to remind him of something he forgot a long time ago: the little insignificant moments in life. Growing up, Zeke only wanted the attention of his father. He used to see other children playing with their dads, but back home, he was forced to go through his father's brainwashing. He never got to be just a kid. When Armin told him about the little meaningless things that changed his life, like feeding a squirrel or just running around with his friends, that reminded Zeke of those brief moments he had with Tom, just throwing the ball around. It had nothing to do with moving forward. It was actually stopping to appreciate the little moments in life. Maybe it's okay to be born without a purpose and without being special. Maybe the fact that you are born is what makes you special. This is basically the same philosophy of Eren Yeager. So in the end, Armin didn't convince or force something on Zeke. He just reminded him of the feeling he had so long ago, including the time he spent in the paths. The path shifters. Talking about things that look like hallucinations, this entire encounter felt very surreal to me. I don't know if this is Isayama's intentions for a wholesome ending, or is this some trick or joint hallucination inside of the paths, but it was still nice seeing Kruger again, and also Tom's Titan, which is a freaking ram. But again, we don't get a lot of Attack on Titan vibe from this scene, and I honestly don't see why only those specific shifters came into play. About Ymir joining them, we still don't know what she really wants, but I can think of two things. If this is truly her dream, she might just want to wake up, or if she still suffers, maybe she just wants to end her life there. And actually, maybe both things will lead to the same result. I do hope we learn more about what she really wants in chapter 138. Regarding the fight that is going around on the outside, like I mentioned before, we do have a crowd of people watching from the sideline, so I really can't see how any of this can be fake. Zeke's death. The moment had come. After waking up the other shifters to fight the other path shifters, Zeke finally gets a moment to appreciate the sun, to enjoy a last meaningless moment, just before Levi takes off his head. The promise has finally been fulfilled. And nice job from Isayama giving Levi this speech in the previous chapter. Levi saying that maybe his part was over made a lot of people believe Levi won't be able to keep his promise. After all this time, and after all the people dead on both sides, we can clearly see there isn't a shred of joy in Levi's eyes. If anything, I see sorrow or even torment. After years, Levi has finally defeated his biggest nemesis, which was Levi's main concern for a long time. That brings me to think about Levi's future in the next two chapters. And do you think the Attack on Titan Junior High foreshadowing will come into play? Will Levi also lose his head by the end of this story? Let me know what you think. You also asked me why did the rumbling stop? In a few of my videos I claimed that Eren and Zeke are acting as a door and a key, or even better, think of them as two keys that you have to turn at the same time in order to launch a missile strike, well, at least in the movies. But that was also the reason why Zeke was kept with them inside the Titan. If he wasn't needed anymore, I guess they would have left him behind. But instead, they stayed connected because they are both still bound by the touch that activated the power of the Founding Titan. And even now, Eren still can't control the Founding Titan on his own. So, when one key is not turned, the rumbling can't continue moving forward. That is at least my logic at play. But of course, I could be wrong here. And now, for the number one question of this chapter. What happened to Eren and Reiner? After Bertolt and the other Titan shifter help fight the Titans, Jean is finally able to blow up Eren's nape. Here we get to see life in his latest form as he dives down to reconnect with the Titan's head. Reiner tries to fight it from reaching the head, and after the group is able to get far enough, and after we get this beautiful goodbye panel, we see Armin blowing up the entire place. A lot of you asked me if I think Eren is dead, and no one asked about Reiner, which is just sad. And here we go to our last mysterious panel of Armin and his new best friend. As the police are closing by, Armin's friend tells Armin he needs to kill him. That way he will disappear with all the evidence. The Titan ate Armin's enemies, but Armin did let it happen, and that makes him also part blame. I bet you can see by now how similar this situation is to Eren and Armin in our story, and it only gets more similar when Armin is the one in charge of killing his best friend, the one that protected him from bullies all his life, and that was always with him. So you can tell me in the comments, foreshadowing or not. But let's talk about few possible scenarios. First, I believe that Reiner can survive this kind of blast. We know this from the time Bertolt blew up in Shingeki. Reiner breaks apart a lot lately, but we did see his armor protect him before. On the other hand, Eren's crystallization can break Reiner's armor, so it is stronger, but not as strong as Lara's crystal. So if Eren has the Warhammer Titan, and is inside a crystal like I mentioned a few chapters back, that means he can survive the blast even better than Reiner. So in the scenario that Eren is inside the Titan, I absolutely believe he is alive. But there is another scenario, and one which I personally prefer because I also talked about it before. What if Eren was never in his Titan? What if he never left the island and just stayed inside a crystal connected with an underwater cable to his giant Titan, all by using the power of the Warhammer? I mean, we have seen stranger things in this story, right? But why would he do that? Because this was his plan all along. He told Historia that the military is considering her to inherit the beast. That, in time, made Historia get pregnant in order to delay this act. And no, I still don't believe Eren is the father. But anyway, Eren planned for everyone to follow his giant Titan, while he kills everyone in the world except for Paradise, where a new baby is about to be born. We always heard that if a Titan shifter dies, then his power will pass on to an Eldian baby. And I believe this is the moment we are finally going to see this. If this is correct, and now with no other newborn babies in this world, the power of the beast should go to Historia's baby. Although it would be funny if there is another baby out there that is going to get it accidentally. I assume Eren believed he would never be able to bring Zeke to his side, simply because Zeke has his strong opinions that Eren can't simply change. I believe that Eren wanted this power to fall into the hands of that baby, so he could come into contact with a royal blood member who hasn't formed any will or real dreams yet. That will finally make Eren to be in total control, even without being royal himself. He just needed the weakest possible royal to exploit, and he knew that a child would be the perfect royal blood member for his plan. This is my personal scenario, and what I personally think is about to go down in the next chapter. Although I don't think this is some sort of hallucination, I still want to bring up one thing that I talked about before. Just before Eren and Zeke touched, Eren's legs got eaten by the Jaw Titan, but somehow later on, Eren magically grew up some pants. Back then, I thought this was a sign that Eren manipulated some minds in order to trick everyone, but I soon left this idea. So I do have to say, if all these fights turned out to be some sort of dream, hallucination or mind manipulation, I would be glad if this was the moment it started. Not a lot of chance for that in my opinion, but still worth mentioning. And that concludes the most important events of the latest 2 chapters. And please, do let me know if you like this video and if you find the chapters helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment on this video if you enjoyed. Also, come and say hi to me on Discord, Twitter or Facebook, wherever you like. I always super excited talking to all of you. And like I mentioned, if you like my content and you think I deserve it, please feel free to buy me a cup of coffee. That would be super nice of you. Thank you so much for joining me today, my Titan-loving friends, and I will see you all real soon. And until then, don't forget to dedicate your hearts for humanity, inside and outside the walls.